Hello, everybody. Welcome. It is March 28th. It is our full council meeting this evening. And would you please stand with me if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. I'm Mayor Densmore. Mr. Lanzer, would you call roll? Before you do, I'm aware that Mr. Bescher has reported a family emergency and is requesting an excused absence this evening.
We'll start with Ms. Cheney.
Here.
Mr. Fisher.
Here.
Mr. Knipp.
Here.
Ms. Snyder.
Here.
Mr. Van Horn. Here. All members are present except for Mr. Badger.
Thank you. Is there a motion to excuse Mr. Bescher?
Motion to excuse.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Presuming everyone has had an opportunity to look at the agenda, do I have a motion to approve the agenda for today? Or any needs to amend it?
Mr. Donlin, this evening, I don't believe we're going to request an executive session.
Correct, we do not need one.
Okay.
Was there a motion?
Yeah.
Second.
All right.
Yes or no?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, without objection, I'll take that as unanimous. I do not have anyone listed requesting to speak to council this evening that pre-registered. Is that okay? And I'm presuming everyone has had an opportunity to look at the minutes from 3/14, our previous meeting. And if there are no questions, I would ask for a motion to accept those minutes.
Motion to accept.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Two. And let's see. Okay, my report. Concerning the issue of nails on Langdon Farm Road, I think you all are familiar with, the more long-term issue of our residents have shared about speeding on Langdon Farm. I reached out to Cincinnati Mayor Aftab Fervell Saturday morning, and this is the text of what I said. I'll put my glasses on. It's very small. I want to apologize that a public complaint was aired without reaching out directly to you first. If you haven't seen it, I'm referring to Channel 5 news story. I have a link to it. I was unaware that this story was happening until it was aired, and I'm working on better communication with those that did have prior knowledge. Nonetheless, a village official participated, did a great job, but didn't reach out to your office first. Staff that support us can sometimes be very frustrated by things like this, as I know I can be as well when I'm not at least given a heads up. So please pass my apologies along to any of your team that needs it. I'm presuming this wasn't actually that big of a deal to them on their end. The situation on Langdon Farm Road is indeed a frustration for our residents and the surrounding community, not just because of the nails, but even more significantly because of the speeds. It seems to me that there has been at least a couple deaths along this road with excessive speed involved each year. I know solutions sometimes don't immediately present themselves, let alone materialize, but through our collaborative efforts can often be eliminated, initiated, and even accomplished. I'd love to meet up sometime to catch up and see if there's anything we can do together for the mutual benefit of those living along that road. My schedule is probably more flexible than yours, and I can likely stop by your office whenever works on your end. Could you or one of your staff let me know availability for this? Thanks for all you do in service to the community. He did follow up this morning and said they would continue sweeping the street. And if there's any more effective or collaborative measures, they'd be happy to work with us. I got a couple ideas on addressing speed issues on Langdon Farm, and if any of you are interested in pursuing this further or any other issues concerning Langdon Farm, I'm happy to meet and bring our ideas to Cincinnati Mayor and see what they say. You may know that Bryant Busa, am I pronouncing that right?
Mhm.
Busa was at the center of volunteer work involved in getting the nails on Langdon Farm picked up. I reached out over the weekend and thanked him for that. And on the recommendation of Ms. Cheney and Ms. Snyder, I'm formally appointing him to the Community Engagement Committee tonight. he accepted earlier today. I contacted him after I got the recommendations from you guys. He said that he was unable to be here tonight. I invited him to be here so you guys who don't know him personally would be able to say hi to him and everything, but he was unable to make it tonight. But grateful, and I'm grateful for his service, his willingness to serve the community. I believe everyone knows that there's a town hall meeting on the transfer of fire services this Wednesday. Mr. Hirth just handed me the press release concerning that. I can pass that around, but that has gone to all the major television news stations. Let's see, and yeah, so that's on the transfer of fire services this Wednesday night at 6:30 p.m. It'll be held in the community hall. The administration estimates that the presentation portion of the evening should take about a half an hour.
Half hour.
Yeah. Our plan is to hold all the questions that come until the end of the presentation, but we will address each question. We're going to pass out cards for those that are attending in person. I had an example of this here somewhere. And where they can write their questions on the back and then record their name and address. During the question and answer period, I'll call on folks to come forward and state their question or read it for them if they prefer that their question be presented that way. For those online watching, they can send their questions to info@golfmanoroh.gov, and administration will answer their questions within the next 24 to 48 hours. That will be our goal. We don't know how many people are going to show up or how many we'll have online, but we do plan on answering every question, and I certainly encourage all of our elected officials to attend.
And it'll be archived to watch it later.
March is Women's History Month. Women's History Month is designated as an educational endeavor to increase awareness, not just of the contributions, but also the unique experiences of women in our history. Women's History Month is officially recognized in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, corresponding with International Women's Day, which is March 8th. International Women's Day was first designated to commemorate women successfully championing their right to vote, which in New Zealand was 1893, South Australia was 1894, Soviet Russia was 1917, Sweden was 1919, the United States was 1920, and Canada was 1929. But it's now more so a commemoration of the right to fair treatment with dignity in all of one's self-determined endeavors. Every U.S. president since 1988 has proclaimed March as Women's History Month. The first president who acknowledged the significance of women's history in 1980 said, quote, "From the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women have worked together to build this nation. Too often the women were unsung and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed. But the achievements, leadership, courage, strength, and love of the women who built America was as vital as that of the men whose names we know so well." He went on to say that women's history is a right, quote, "It is an essential and indispensable heritage from which we can draw pride, comfort, courage, and long-range vision. Understanding the true history of our country will help us to comprehend the need for full equality under the law for all our people." And that president that I was quoting was President Carter. Much of women's history and collective experience wasn't known by women or men until it was taught in school. By highlighting extraordinary women this month, children and adults alike are provided examples to look up to, emulate, and have pride in. But Women's History Month is not just about highlighting extraordinary individuals, but also highlighting common experiences that are unacceptable in a land where we're striving for equality in both liberty and justice. This month, I've been going back through the resources. I presented this script last year on Women's History Month. And of course, what I don't enjoy about doing that is coming across the accounts of some women and girls that have had experiences that I would not want my children or anyone else to have to suffer. Unfortunately, without the focus to which this month is devoted, many of us, including myself, would not even know that such experiences had occurred or continue to occur. So I invite you to expand your knowledge this month to learn more about extraordinary women, as well as more about the experiences that continue to be barriers to women. Barriers we collectively still need to address if we are to live closer to that ideal of equality and both liberty and justice upon which our nation is founded. And in my mayor's report from last year, if you go online and look at the blog for the last, I think it was like the first meeting in March last year, you'll see a list of links that include the Congressional National Archives, but they have resources for teachers there. They have educational resources at the National Women's History Museum that's also linked there. PBS has a Women's History Video Archive. Scholastic Women's History Month collection of teaching resources is also linked there, as well as the Anti-Defamation League's resources for Women's History Month. Hamilton County Job and Family Services new leader, Michael Patton, has announced last week that there'll be an increase in the stipend provided to grandparents, aunts, uncles, and other relatives and friends who care for kids that are in the custody of Hamilton County Job and Family Services. Sometimes it's determined that children's safety requires that they be separated, at least temporarily, from their home. And these are tragic situations which can be all the more traumatizing when the child is placed with a complete stranger. Recognizing this, Hamilton County Job and Family Services have always prioritized investigating whether there is a member of close kin to the child that can be the temporary caregiver. And in these situations, that family member or close family friend is given a stipend to help assist them with the transition. When children cannot safely remain with their parents, we know they have better outcomes when they live with kin. Kinship placements allow children to maintain important connections to their families and communities. My understanding is that the money used to stop after 6 months, even if it was deemed that the foster placement or kinship placement was going well and should continue. What they have decided to do now is increase those payments and continue them past 6 months if everything continues to go well with the placement. The executive director thanks Hamilton County voters for supporting the Children's Services Levy, the funds from which is making this possible. And I know it affects a number of our residents. Marilyn Kirby passed away this last week. Marilyn founded Everybody's Records, the Pleasant Ridge record store. She was 71. Everybody's Records opened in 1978, and she was the only female owner of a record store in the tri-state area, which is fitting fact for Women's History Month. Buy, sell, or trade was the slogan and vision she had for the store. Choices from R&B, gospel, rock, and funk, and a whole host of other nostalgic music. I'm a big fan of Everybody's Records. When there's some new music out that I want digital and on album, that's where I go. And it's warm and cozy there. I love the place and was saddened to hear of Miss Kirby's passing. I'm told Miss Kirby was also involved in the community, often donating toys and clothes to those less fortunate in the local area. If you'd like to make a donation in honor of Marilyn Kirby, you can do so at the Dragonfly Foundation. I'll have a link to that in my report. You can also just search for that online. Another reminder about the upcoming community intergroup Passover Seder occurring next Wednesday, April 6th from 11:45 a.m. to 1:15 p.m. at the Marison JCC. I misspoke in my report at our last meeting saying that this would be a virtual get-together. On the contrary, it's in person. That's what the $18 for adults is for, and $8 for students. We're past the registration deadline by a couple days, but my understanding is that if you called tomorrow and asked to speak to someone that could forgive your late registration, you can probably still get in. Excuse me. I'm going to mispronounce this individual's last name. I usually do. I had a meeting with Christy Iswako, all right, who is the senior health educator for the Hamilton County Public Health We Thrive initiative and our We Thrive navigators last week with Mr. Hirth. With the pandemic and the resulting cancellation of community with the cancellation of so many in-person community events, the county side of the We Thrive initiative really kind of came to a stop. Jacqueline Threadgill and Casey Dressel, our community We Thrive navigators, did a great job keeping things going with yoga in the park and just staying connected to people. Christy came to kind of recircle the wagons and talk about some strategies for moving forward with municipal partnerships with the county and around health and wellness, and what they'd like from the community grassroots navigators as far as communication. Anyway, I'm excited for the work the grassroots navigators are doing and looking forward to some initiatives that we as a municipality can partner with the county, like on the lead remediation initiative that I've been working on with the administration. Casey Dressel has agreed to join the community engagement committee as well, which I think will be mutually beneficial to the We Thrive grassroots efforts and our municipal engagement goals. I've known Christy for a number of years, ever since Gulf Manor first partnered with the health board for the We Thrive initiative. But she's going to be taking leave this summer, having a baby. So the grassroots navigators will be working with a different representative over the summer until she returns in the late fall. And that is the end of my report. If there's no questions, I will, sure.
I have one comment.
All right.
In the event you meet with the mayor of Cincinnati, I was there, I would participate in the nail pickup that was
Okay.
first discovered, and they're using one of my magnets. But
I did not know that. Thank you.
there was a big problem. One of the problems you gotta tell is this, we cleaned up the whole thing.
I've
The
heard this
street sweeper
part,
Came
yeah.
through and the nails were all back.
Yeah.
And we talked to the guy and their street sweepers don't vacuum.
You just
So-
push them off.
So if they have, it's picking them up elsewhere and then redistributing again, because we had the street all clean.
Yeah.
And they came through, we thought this is great, and all the nails are back.
Yeah.
So we don't know where they're picking them up, but that the street sweeper has to actually pick it up. All they're doing is, like you said, pushing it over.
Yeah.
So ask them if they have one with a vacuum, that would make a big difference.
I'll do that. I was kind of winking at Miss Cheney when I was reading the part about how they said they would continue to sweep because I had heard that. So yeah, we'll definitely bring that up. So, and again, any of you, please, if you're interested in this, I did not know your level of involvement. Thank you, Roger.
We thought we had it solved,
Yeah.
and it's just continued. We cleaned it all up when I was there. And we found, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 pounds
Yeah.
that day. But then he's found a lot more since.
Yeah.
So
Well, the Cincinnati mayor has said that, if we can think of more successful ways and we can collaborate in that, that he would love to do that.
well, it's
So,
obviously finding them. It's just that it's not picking them up. It just spreads them all out again. So anyway.
well, with the people that you're in connection with, as you think of ideas that are solutions to this, like your suggestion about do they have one that has a vacuum on it, I'd be happy to bring that to them. All right, anything else? Mr. Hirth.
Thank you. Nice not to have COVID at the top of the hour here, isn't it? Just a quick update, road projects, we continue to wait for sustained weather improvements, so the Vera work may continue. If the weather remains fair, they're going to be finishing up the rest of the concrete work that needs to be done. The asphalt won't take place until the asphalt plants fire back up, which probably won't be until sometime in mid-April. So hopefully that project will end sooner than later. As we're waiting for the Englewood, Canterbury, and Elbrook bid to be done, we've been in discussions with the road engineer that the Weehee project probably won't start until later in 2022 for a couple of reasons. The biggest one is finding a contractor with the appropriate amount of labor to get the job done. In addition to the fact that we don't want to be an impediment to the event that we're planning on September 22nd to celebrate the village's 75th anniversary and safety day. So we'll keep you in the loop on this as the bids and so forth go up, but that's kind of the tentative schedule at the moment. Just a reminder, still need appointees for the Board of Tax Review. The fire and EMS services transition continues to move smoothly with progress and minimal issues. The service department is studying either renovation or replacement of the service building, and I think they reported at the last council meeting that they have moved their offices into the first floor of the firehouse, and I think they're thrilled to be there.
Yes.
There are no tenant rodents in there with them.
Oh,
A reminder that the Station 47 celebration is scheduled for this Saturday, April 2nd, from 7 to 10 p.m. I know Mr. Marks mentioned that he had only received a couple of RSVPs from the council members. If you intend to go, you need to let them know that you're going to be there because they're counting numbers for food and drinks and things like that. Brush pickup occurs through October now on the second and fourth Thursday of the month. A reminder that starting next Monday, Rumpke begins their weekly brush and yard waste recycling pickup on Mondays. And it'll do that throughout the month of April. One of the big pluses to doing that is if your stuff is bagged or if you have limbs which have been cut, which need to be by the specifications that are normally required, those actually do go to recycling. So this is an actual recycling truck that comes. Residents can still put their stuff out for the regular Rumpke trash, but it does not go to recycling at that point. Our stuff that we pick up goes to a recycling dump, and the village pays for that, to dump that. So it would be good if we can encourage residents to use this new Rumpke service that's available to them.
Mr. That's bags and brush.
Bags and brush. So the brush, as much as you can put in bags is fine. But if you have like limbs, 4-foot limbs bundled, those don't have to be in bags.
Okay.
Grass, yard trimmings too, grass clippings, things like that can go in bags.
I learned something this evening that I didn't know about this, and that is that the village gets reimbursed for part of our fee for this service for the weight of all the stuff that we get. So I hadn't realized that the significance of increased participation, how that effect has with us. So yeah, use the service because then we get reimbursed.
Okay, and as the mayor mentioned, the town hall presentation takes place starting Wednesday, March 30th at 6:30 p.m. in the community hall. What we will be doing is having a separate feed with a computer with the info@golfmanoroh.gov email address so we can take questions live as people submit them. We're not doing it live on the Zoom link simply because it's just more expedient to take them through email. And then finally, on aggregation this evening, and with the prices going up, it's aggravation. The natural gas prices are climbing quickly and substantially. And we are coming to the end of our contract in June. We were on a 3-year contract this time. Our vendor is recommending that we switch to a different company. So we have legislation tonight with asking council to give me the authority to go ahead and sign that contract. We were hoping to have numbers for you this evening, but the numbers are one day go way, way up and then they come down. Then they go way, 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 way up again, then they come down. So they're not willing yet to lock into natural gas prices. When they make that decision and it's time to go ahead and lock that in, we will need to act quickly. This legislation this evening will allow me to do that. The number is that they're offering, and it's anywhere from 5 to 10 cents more than what aggregation is offering. So hold on to your socks. We are currently paying 39 cents per cubic foot for gas, 0.039, I call it 39 cents. It's going to at least double, if not triple, in cost for the next heating season. So we'll have an option to sign a contract for a 1, 2, or 3-year period. They're recommending that depending on what the difference is between the first and second year, we consider that, not third year, because they're expecting that the market is going to level off once things normalize with whatever's happening in the Ukraine right now. So it's all related. We're just watching it happen here. So just a quick explanation on that. And that's the end of my report unless there's questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hurth. Any questions? Mr. Lanzer, our fiscal officer and economic development coordinator.
Okay, 2 items tonight. One's the financial packet, then I'll give a brief overview of some information that Councilmember Betcher requested that I acquire for the Finance Committee. For the month of February, the Village of Gulf Manor had an adjusted bank balance of $2.8 million. Of this amount, 2.7 is accounted for in the village's primary checking account, $10,000 in the village's mayor's court account, and the remaining balance resides in 2 village law enforcement funds. I always like to note that due to fund accounting, the majority of the resources accounted for in the village's primary checking account have actually been accounted for in 2 road and street funds, which are dedicated funds. So those resources can only be spent for those dedicated purposes. Moving on, the village had 23 outstanding payments that totaled $25,000. The village had 79 cleared payments that totaled $264,000. And the top 5 payment payees for the month were payroll, Deer Park Silverton, which is the contract requirement for the new fire and EMS service, Ohio Police and Fire Pension, Jefferson Health, which is the employee health insurance, and OPERS, which is employee retirement. In regards to receipts, the village had 28 receipts cleared the bank that totaled $225,000. Of that amount, $171,000 was in the village's general fund. The good news is this was $55,000 more than what the village generated in February of last year. This included approximately $83,000 in general fund income tax receipts. And this number was $5,000 more than what we received in February of last year. So that's also good news. For the year, the village generated $153,000 in general fund income tax receipts. And this is $40,000 more than what the village generated in February of last year. So, good news. As for appropriations, total appropriation spent for the month was $385,000. Of that amount, $208,000 was in February alone. Slightly higher than what we spent in February of last year, but again, this year we have, this February we began payments to Deer Park Silver. That was $48,000, which is approximately the difference between the 2 months. That is the end of my finance report. Is there any questions from council? All right, the last thing is about Star Ohio. So at our last finance meeting, Mr. Betcher requested that I research and bring to the committee information about the State Treasury Asset Reserve Program known as Star Ohio. What Star Ohio is a money market mutual fund specifically designed for political jurisdictions in Ohio. This includes counties, cities, school districts, townships, villages, public libraries, fire districts, park and rec districts, and transportation boards, and it's managed by the state treasurer's office. They administer and manage the program's portfolio. The program itself has Standard & Poor's highest rating, and they've maintained that rating since 1995. Really well respected, does result in positive financial outcomes to participating communities. To date, to end of 2021, the program held a net position of $17.6 billion. It's in summary, it's a very, very positive program for communities who wish to participate in it. And Mr. Betcher requested that I get this information and bring it to council so that there could be some future conversation regarding investing some of our carryover reserve balance into this program. Because as of right now, it's just sitting in checking and savings accounts where the interest is non-existent. So this is a way to turn some of that money and make it work for the village and contribute to sustaining financial health of the village. So I'm sure this will be a topic of conversation at future council meetings. I just wanted to give you all an update on what that program is.
I appreciate it, and I presume there'll be probably a request for a motion when we get to our finance committee meeting this evening concerning all this.
So council needs to approve the financial report that Mr. Butcher does.
So do I have a motion for a vote and approval of the financial report that Mr. Lanzer gave?
Motion to include.
Is there a second?
Second.
My only question is, if we're gonna do anything on discussing the STAR program, we're waiting till the financial,
That was my,
is that, just checking?
Well, I don't think
His
we,
report is separate from
Yeah,
that
it was
discussion.
separate for it. So
Right.
Mr.
Okay.
Badger requested that I have it ready to go. He's obviously not here this evening, so I think a lot of that conversation would be spurred by him. But I wanted to make sure, I wanted to provide that to council.
Yeah.
And my guess would be at future council meetings, this conversations will happen.
Okay.
Now, I did receive some requests to reach out to other communities who participate in the program, get an idea of how they use Star Ohio and what sorts of things they use with whatever mechanism they use it for, which I will research and provide for the next council meeting.
excellent. All right. I was eyeing Ms. Snyder over there because she was in the absence of Mr. Betcher handling the finance committee meeting. So I was just, yeah. Okay. Very good. Any other questions?
So do we have a motion?
We do, and we have a second. Any other questions? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Without objection, I see that as unanimous. Great. Anything else, Mr. Lanzer?
That is it for me this evening.
Great. Lieutenant Forrest is sitting in for Chief Campbell this morning. Do you have a report for us?
Sorry,
A report for
I
us?
do. So I understand we report a month in arrears to make sure we're giving those comprehensive numbers. That's clearly we have several days left in the month of March. Pretty busy month for us. Overall, there were 335 calls for service requested or enacted upon by the officers. Highlights are parking complaints are holding steady, about 22. We've worked with some of the council members in the past, as recently as late last year, looking at some strategies and things we can do to assist with that. It's just something we're just going to have to continue working on moving forward. Officers engaged in 107 directed patrols. Directed patrols can range from targeted enforcement areas. If we have a specific complaint in an area like every time at Lincoln Farm, right? So if we get complaints about people running stop signs or speeding in certain areas, or let's just say they're just out specifically looking in a target area that they have identified through their patterns of enforcement that they need to be. Those directed patrols resulted in 22 traffic stops. A variety issued were citations, some were warnings, some vehicles were towed. As we've moved in our transition with the Deer Park Silverton away from LMFR, the officers have now transitioned back into responding to all EMS runs. We did 28 in February. We are looking at continuing our training program to be more responsive for EMS runs to reduce the time for critical incidents and things like that. So that kind of leads into the training that was conducted in February. Our officers received training in advanced patrol tactics, vehicle stops, officer safety, Spanish level 1 with officer survival and communication, FBI leadership certification, other law enforcement leadership training, A-RIDE, which is an advanced roadside interdiction program for driving impaired under the influence of narcotics. We may not get the same obvious indicators as an impaired person who's been drinking. Certainly if they're on heroin or medication, they're not going to blow anything on the intoxilizer. So this training will allow the officers to have the skill sets they need to interdict those types of enforcement issues. And then we also had an officer attend basic tactical medical instructor school, which kind of leads into our efforts moving forward with the potential for an EMR program that we're looking into, which will allow our officers basically, again, to have a much more robust capability to support our medical needs as we're continuing this transition. That also includes the potential for us to start doing CPR, first aid, stop the bleed, tourniquet training, free to the residents once a month if we want to do something like that, where we can increase our interaction community relations wise and also providing those services out into the community. So it's been busy as far as training goes and planning. The canine unit, for the most part, is happy and healthy. He's still there. 5 back in February. I don't know if anybody happened to see that on his Facebook page. He had 3 deployments in February. Those 3 deployments resulted in 5 arrests. The individuals arrested were charged with a variety of crimes to include possession and trafficking of narcotics, kidnapping, aggravated robbery, receiving stolen property, and theft. So he's out there pulling down some pretty bad dudes. Again, including one of that kidnapping case. In that particular case, the individual kidnapped somebody at gunpoint and assaulted him and threatened to shoot him several times over. So he was a pretty special guy. So those are a variety of individuals that came and helped get off the streets and making our general community safer. Finally, we continue to streamline and look for efficiencies, acquiring more equipment, more resources without impacting the budget heavily. One of those programs we use is through the DLA, the 1033 program, which I myself spearhead. In February, we received 3 canine trauma equipment kits. Basically, we can do everything from putting Band-Aids on our dog to literally doing each kit is $7,000 a piece, and we received all 3 of those for free, and they've been deployed between ours and Amberley Village's police vehicles, so that wherever a dog's at, we can assist that and make sure that we protect our investments. In addition to that, we just received, it's at the end of February, I don't really know what day it came in because I was out of town, a new crime scene investigative tool called a Miniscope. It is a alternate light source. Many of you guys, if you like to watch the Forensic Files, you've seen things like that where they start using the lights to see everything from body hairs to body fluids and all kinds of other evidence. If anybody's interested in seeing that in real time, we can walk around the building and it will frighten you what is actually crawling on the walls around your homes. But that is an incredible resource that was given to us, again, free, several $1,000s that we would have had to pay to even have that resource. And we're probably one of like 3 agencies in Hamilton County that even have that access. CPD, I know, would have it for sure. The coroners would have it, and the sheriff's department. I don't know many other agencies that have that kind of resource. So we are constantly working for efficiencies and improving capabilities and how we can support you guys.
So, Lieutenant Forrest, I said this at our previous council meeting, but it wasn't directly to you. I observed you engaging with some teenagers over in the park. I was there.
Hopefully I did something okay.
It was awesome. It was awesome. The kids were clearly happy. They were enjoying your interaction with them and everything. And I wanted to
Football
thank you. Yeah.
Did you see me smoke that kid from first to second base?
Yeah.
He came out there bragging he was going to beat me. I was like, I'm a short, fat old man. I was smoked.
Want to thank you for that and directly. And I'll let you know, one of my first experiences here in Gulf Manor when we moved in was seeing an officer. It was so long ago, I don't know if it was you or if it was somebody else, engaging with some of the teenage residents here in the community. And it made me very proud of the department and of Gulf Manor. So thank you.
Oh,
Great
we
service.
love it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got paid to play football in the park. It was a great day.
Nice report, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I do. Of the 3 cases that Chief took care of, were any,
The deployments were all at the request of the U.S. Marshals, and that could be anywhere. Tomorrow, we've been asked to go up to Middletown. There's an individual up there. I won't get into too much great detail, but he's a very, very, very bad guy with a great deal of resources that tracked him from New Jersey to Middletown.
what's the farthest that you take, Chief?
I can go anywhere in the United States.
Anywhere? Okay.
We have national jurisdiction
Okay.
underneath the Marshals. The farthest I've been with him would be probably Middletown North, and we've been way out in Brown County when we've had a couple of DEA, ATF, people selling like automatic firearms. We've been out that way to assist with those, and we've been down into Northern Kentucky a couple of times to assist a couple of things.
Has Chief ever been in danger?
I mean, every day. he's
Every
with
day
me.
it is, okay.
But
But not shot at
So-
yet?
Hopefully never.
Okay.
hopefully never. But we have an incredible amount of resources dedicated for Chief. We're very fortunate. Chief is a very cared for and loved dog in general in the canine community and through the Haverkamp Foundation. And there's other organizations that kind of recognize the significance he has because of Matt Haverkamp and that foundation. So resource-wise, as far as his safety is concerned, safety equipment, vests, training, things like that, we have a lot. If you ever want to go look at the back of the canine vehicle, our canine does things that no other canine in Hamilton County does.
Okay.
Because we train for it and we've been given resources to accomplish those types of things. Chief can rappel out of helicopters. If we had a natural disaster and we needed to put the dog down into where the waterways are, if somebody was missing, we can rappel into those environments. We can put Chief onto a harness system and literally using pulley systems that we have inside the canine vehicle right now, we can put him 3 floors up into an area that you and I couldn't climb into if we needed those capabilities. So we're
Sharon's pretty spry.
I couldn't go anyway.
So, for example, tomorrow, the individual we're going after, if we deploy our
Let's
dogs.
have to be careful. We are broadcasting when you discuss where you're going to go tomorrow.
Right, yeah. So I won't get into any other details than that, but it's a bad person and there's a certain risk associated with that type of thing. I wouldn't necessarily say it's any more dangerous than our officers are going out and doing their job every day. But that's what he's there for, right?
Thank you.
Locating bad guys and making us safer.
We appreciate you, and Chief. We might want to mention the Matt Haverkamp run.
I was just going to ask him
Okay.
if he would let the council know the date of the Haverkamp Foundation run. And
April.
because I would like to challenge, I know it's coming up here soon. I'd like to challenge, I want to run in it. So I want to get the information to go ahead and register for it. And I want to challenge any other council member to try to beat me in that race. All right? So
It's the 10th.
The 10th?
The 10th, April 10th.
sign up and walk or run with me.
Saturday.
I'll be gentle.
Goes through
Oh,
Spring
okay.
Brook Cemetery still, right?
Yes.
It's a nice
Saturday,
walk.
April.
It's
Sunday,
beautiful that time.
It's
Right.
beautiful.
So it is. It is absolutely probably one of the nicest 5Ks you'll run in the Cincinnati area, in my opinion. I might be biased because it's the Haverkamp run.
Yeah.
But the scenery is amazing. And as far as the terrain goes, it's fairly gentle, right? You're going to have some elevation. You're going to be challenged, but it's a gentle. It's not like running in Mount Adams.
Right.
And then the event is amazing.
And I did
They
it.
have so many
Took me too
canines
bad.
there. They bring in a great deal of resources. They land helicopters out there. There was talk about Chief actually rappelling out of the helicopter into the
Ooh.
5K this year. That remains to be seen if we're going to be able to pull that off.
You're
As
saving
far as
that
their
for the
resources.
safety.
That's safety day,
Right.
right?
We'll do it. It's not, I'll tell you that the concern isn't whether or not we, the canine handler and dog, can do it. It's the resources that need to be on the helicopter itself for us to clip into. But it really is. It's a beautiful event. There's a lot of people out there, and you would be hard pressed to find a single person out there with a bad attitude who would spoil your day. It is a great day, and there will be dogs there all day from a variety of organizations throughout the tri-state. You will be interacting with canines, handlers, lots of hands-on time. I will actually be there for the majority of the event with Chief and with a laser engraver doing custom toys for people's dogs. So come out, buy a custom tug for your dog, we'll engrave it with a laser for you and raise money for the Haverkamps.
Awesome. And family friendly, obviously, for kids. and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right.
We can still donate money to a sign too that mentions Chief on the walk,
You
right?
could, but I believe
Are they
Mr.
still
Hurd has
doing
already done that, right?
Oh.
They've already
The
received a donation.
GMPD sponsored the shirt this year. I don't think we did the block signs this year.
Okay, all right. So
Okay.
you still could,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Thank you again. Mr. Donlin.
That's a tough act to follow. All I got is legislation to talk about.
It's a tough act.
Yeah. The first piece of legislation, we had tabled at the last meeting, resolution number 2022-15. This concerns authorizing a contract to purchase what we commonly call the bakery property at the corner. There was a family medical emergency. Mrs. Cranes was called out of town, so she was not able to sign the document before she left. They have requested we table it again until April 11th. I've stressed to them, we have to get something done because we are dependent upon the county funds and we can't lose that schedule. So Can I have a motion to table that to April 11th?
Wait, what about electronic signatures?
They were not able to facilitate getting the document signed.
Do they have email?
I didn't go into the detail with them as to what they could or could not do relative to signatures.
That might be a worth question.
Well, she's supposed to be back in town this week.
Oh.
So my hope is that they'll bring it over as soon as this week to get it signed. I asked, rather than waiting until the last minute with April 11th coming up, could they please get it to me by the beginning of next week? So yeah, a lot of varieties with internet, e-sign, DocuSign, FedEx, so forth. But
That's
I
why.
think their attention was focused otherwise with medical emergency.
Motion table.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those approved? All those in
Aye.
favor? Without objection, it sounds unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you. The second piece of legislation I have is touching on what Mr. Hurth talked about earlier, and that's Resolution 2022-16, a resolution approving a government aggregation natural gas supply agreement with AEP Energy, Inc. And now that I've read it by title only, can I have a motion to read it by title only? And I'll reread it by title only.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So once again, it is a resolution approving a government aggregation natural gas supply agreement with AEP Energy, Inc., and I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Before we do a roll call vote, Mr. Hurth and I talked today about the volatility of pricing. And this will allow him with the authority to jump in when the pricing is correct to sign us up for that contract. You mentioned the possibility of maybe not going with a 2-year agreement. So what I would ask is before we move or before we make final approval is to amend Section 1 to indicate he's authorized to execute such a contract for a period of up to 24 months. So if the opportunity comes along for a 12-month or 18-month, we have that flexibility to do that. If they give us the maximum, we would take it to the 24. So that would be a motion to amend before we go to a vote.
Can you write that amendment on there? And
And I'll get you the correct text.
And, oops, there it is. And obviously, most of the discussion of this was handled with Mr. Lanzer earlier. Are there any other questions? I'm sorry, I thought with Mr. Hurth earlier, sorry.
We sit close to each other.
Yeah,
So do we have a motion to amend, add that language?
we do,
Motion
and we
to
have
amend.
a second.
Second.
All right,
And that'd be all in favor on the amendment.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we already have the first and the second on the approval. Mr. Lanzer, would you do a roll?
Ms. Chaney,
Yes.
Mr. Fisher,
Yes.
Mr. Knapp,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Mr. Van Horn.
Yes.
Take care.
And we will get that text corrected and then get the contract to Mr.
I'll
Hurth.
have you send correctly.
So we can be flexible enough to jump when the opportunity presents itself. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Donellan. Executive Committee did not meet this evening. Mr. Van Harm, do you have any report? Nope. Let's see, Planning Commission will meet next on Monday, April 4th. This discussion continues on fence, driveways, sidewalks, and concrete requirements, along with evaluation of the zoning certificate process. Anyone else involved on that Planning Commission committee have anything that they want to add in Mr. Betcher's absence?
Just Matt is on the committee from this group, but I would mention, you're aware that we use Citizen Serve as our building code enforcement software. There's actually a module, there's several modules in Citizen Serve that we don't use that we are talking with the vendor about activating. And one would be doing all of our zoning certificates and requests for planning hearings online, electronically, and people could pay by credit card. So that's something that we're working on. That'll really speed up that process for people.
Excellent. Ms. Cheney, Community Engagement Committee.
Okay. Community engagement met on March 22nd. Liz Bloom, the Director of Community Building Institute at Xavier, met with us to discuss our housing census and getting feedback from our residents. They will interview the residents. We supply her with a list of residents, and she's asking for new residents, parents with children, residents who recently moved out. She wants to know why they're moving out. Real estate agents who have sold homes here, seniors and longtime residents, and people who know everybody. And she's looking for, of course, a diverse group. The interviews with her and her team shouldn't last any longer than 45 minutes. They'll be one-on-ones. And then once she completes those interviews, she will give us the data. We're also looking and discussing focus group discussions. In those focus groups that we're discussing now, it'll be teenagers, young people, businesses, and the Jewish community. There'll probably be other ones too, but those are the ones that we discussed. Okay. And Ashley is our contact person. She's taking all the names and she's going to submit them to Ms. Bloom. And then, is there anything else you guys want to add to that? Okay. And then we discussed the town hall meeting, just a brief discussion on what was going to take place. That's Wednesday, March 30th at 6:30. We discussed very slightly the 75th anniversary, the safety fair for September the 18th. It'll be in Volunteer Park. The police department's handling it. Thank you very much. Fireworks are also in discussion for that event. And there'll be a Golf Manor history display on site. Is there anything else you want to add to that? Anybody else? No? Okay. And then we discussed that the 2020 census was out and Golf Manor now has 3,800 residents. And I did look up the breakdowns on the different diversity. Looks like it didn't change too much from what we've had.
And that consultant said that they would be part of their deal, would they be giving us some
Right.
some of the minutia that you don't normally see in that.
And then our next meeting is April 12th at 9:30. We moved it from April 19th due to Passover.
So
Yes.
I wanted to ask the committee this. April 12th turns out to be opening day now.
Oh,
Mr. Lanzer will not be here that day.
uh-oh.
So we'll-
I don't blame you one bit. I won't either.
I have to
So-
work-
Gotta go,
work the-
that's the parade too, isn't it?
That's, yeah, I have to work the parade now. because-
Oh,
because it's a requirement. But we need to
Change
reschedule
it?
that meeting.
okay.
So and I know we had tried to target Tuesdays for Mr. Fisher. Do we have some dates that we can throw out there to see what works? What about Thursday that week?
I think that's in Holy Week, right?
Yeah, it's,
Starts on the 15th, so the
Okay.
14th is gonna be too close. 13th, I'm probably not.
I think we probably need to,
So we could do Thursday the 14th, right?
No,
Yeah.
I'm probably not gonna be here because I'm going to New York, to Toronto for Passover.
we should probably talk about this with Mr. Busa too.
Mhm. I know he can do morning, but he has to leave at 10:30 because he
Yeah,
picks up
I
his child, right?
The
Okay, so
11th
you guys will decide when you want to meet and let me know.
Want to do that?
Yeah,
Sure.
perfect.
Okay.
on the topic of getting community input and getting residents that can be interviewed. When I was approaching people, and my focus was specifically on underrepresented individuals, underrepresented demographics, basically. I heard over and over again that, yeah, we'll give you feedback, but why isn't this in everybody's mailbox? I don't want to be the token person that's being interviewed for this. There was a lot of, I heard folks say, like, I already had their contact information, but they were very reserved about wanting to provide their contact information. And they said they would get back to me about that. But there was this piece about how come this isn't going into everyone's mailbox if you really want representation, that people will respond. My response was, the consultant said that that personal invitation is more powerful, and you're more likely to get feedback from folks if you're personally requesting it. They doubled down on, oh, you'll get feedback, but send it out to everybody. That's just the sampling of people that I've been going to. I told them that I would bring that to council. So there it is. I brought it to council. All right. The question of why isn't this going out into the invitation going out into everyone's mailbox? But that's to you guys' committee. Consider that. That's the message I'm bringing. That's all. Is there any other comments on for Ms. Cheney?
If they're gonna consider that, I would suggest that it's not just that it would actually then include an invitation to do an online survey also, and not necessarily just.
Yeah, because they're not gonna interview everyone.
Exactly.
Right, they
But
just want a
even
sample.
10-question online or
Yeah.
something, because one, it makes gives more value to the invitation.
Yeah.
Because you're making responses that you wouldn't get if you're only asking for
Yeah.
people to personally interview. And I think it's important, and it sets the stage for future communication.
And it's getting more data.
So I'm confused. Are you saying mail out to all the households?
I'm
or
saying
just
your committee
to-
considered that. There's been a request from the folks
Okay.
that I've spoken to saying
Okay,
we would get more data that way. And I told them what the consultant said. I agree with what Mr. Van Harn is saying, that even if we don't end up interviewing everyone who responds, we can offer an online survey and be collecting opinions on things.
And
So
if
I
it
would
could be
like your,
online, it
And
might be a
that
raffle,
survey,
have the raffle attached to it, or if you do it, you'll be in a raffle for something, things like that.
So just one thing to consider for what it's worth when I'm allowed to talk.
Sure.
There's studies out there that talk about human behavior, right? And we wonder why we watch 20 people standing around watching a person bleed out on the street and nobody calls 911 and nobody goes down and actually does first aid. Because when you have such a large sampling, the assumption is, I don't need to, someone else is going to do it. So if we blindly just mail out 3,000 mailers, there may be a lot of people who go, that's interesting, someone else will do it. So I do see at least where at least the consultant is saying that personal invitation may pull people in, because face to face, they may feel, I don't want to say obligated, but they feel like my opinion is going to matter. It's not just some random other person in that ethos who might or might not do it. Just something to consider.
No,
And that kind of goes back to, for what it's worth, that app that you were discussing earlier today, where you can send actual push notifications out to people. Hey, tap here, complete this survey, help us better serve what your needs are. And then you can touch everybody who has that, like that, without any real cost.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a couple of things that I'm looking at is, one, the appearance of us just asking people that we know. All right. I also recognize that when there's a portion of the community that has never been invited personally, there may be a sense of, why do I even want to be a part of that? All right. And I think that's a big factor of what we're trying to work with here. And so I'm in favor of doing whatever we have at our disposal. And even if that's just for the appearance of trying to involve everybody, as opposed to saying, well, it wouldn't really work if we tried to invite everyone, right? I don't think that's the proper approach to take. But again, I've charged the Community Engagement Committee to spearhead this kind of stuff. So I'm not going to tell them what to do. I'm going to, say this is what I think, and I'm hoping everyone will tell them as well what you think. All right.
I'm gonna put my 2 cents in. I mean, as I talk to people, I've kind of heard the same feedback that you did.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we all want to participate. And I like the online survey. It's kind of like a census in that we can add data at the bottom for people to check, say, hey, I'm a single mom, or if they want to disclose race, if they want to disclose gender, they have that opportunity to do it. I see where the consultant's coming from, saying, hey, invite people to get involved because then they're more personally vested. That it might be two different things we're talking about. And
I agree.
and this is kind of the first part is kind of get people involved, and getting a personal invitation is huge. But I think we really need to prep for the fact that before we do anything with that personal invitation type of thing, we're going to get that data, and we're going to have that data and that feedback. But we need to be prepared to send out that survey for everybody to participate before we act on this first data. I think people want to get involved, and they're looking for an opportunity. And we don't know everybody. I mean, I certainly, my mother sits on the front porch, knows half about Manor now, and I'm a small fraction of that. So, I think what you guys have done so far is great. I mean, it's incredible. I really do. It's just going to be that second step. I think is going to be that online thing, and that we're going to have to put a postcard in everybody's mailbox. We're going to have to spend the money to mail it or get boots on the ground. Just my thoughts.
Dan, you're exactly right. From when you think of it just from the cold, hard way of marketing, you're always going to get a better response with personal touch. By the numbers, you're going to get more response, but it takes a lot more time and usually more money if you're paying people to do that.
Yeah.
A mailer is not just a mailer. It can be just a mailer, but there's things that you do to increase the response. Whether it's raffles, there's things you do, whether you add yard signs. So it's not just a mailer. You have to actually strategize it in a way that increases the response. That's the art of it. That's the thing to try to figure out. And it's also repetitive. You gotta think of it that way, but anyway.
Good stuff.
Thank you, folks. Ms. Cheney, did you want to speak to education?
I don't have any report
Okay.
yet, but,
Ms. Snyder, did you want to speak to communication?
I think that was all covered.
Okay. Mr. Fisher, did you want to speak to nonprofit? All right, very good. Mr. Betcher is not here for the Finance Committee report, but Ms. Snyder.
Yes, I believe Mr. Lanzar covered the majority of it. However, the Finance Committee did recommend that the administration move forward with the purchase of the police administrative vehicle.
What do you need from council?
That I am not quite sure of. I
Just
don't believe,
a motion, a second, and a majority vote.
do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
All right, sounds unanimous. Very good. Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Is there anything else?
I want to come back
So
to
read
the
out
STAR
all that
program
vote.
because I wasn't sure how
Okay.
much discussion. Right now, it feels loose to me, and I think it's really important that we raise that up in terms of how concrete we're going to approach it. I'm not sure what Andy or Mr. Lanzer meant by future discussions. Can we put a little more teeth into that? Because the way it feels to me, if we're gonna, I'm just using this number randomly, if we have $500,000 that's potentially gonna put in the program, and we're gonna do that every day now, we're actually starting to lose the opportunity of advancement of our funds, or whatever it's gonna do. So can we make that a council decision now, or does it have to go through finance, or how, I want to put some more teeth in it to give it a little more
In
shove.
terms of speeding up the timeline of doing it, even maybe before we know what to do with the proceeds of it, because we don't necessarily need to know what the proceeds.
Yeah, either that or clarify what this process is, because right now it's still,
Yeah.
feels-
Yeah,
at least to me, I want to have more of like, okay, this is what we're gonna do, we're gonna try to do this by when.
And what is
we're gonna-
common practice?
If I may,
You know, so that's all.
my recommendation is as we put together the 2023 budget, we'll have a better idea of what things are going to look like at the end of next year. And I think at that point, I think we know that we are creating sustainable financial results now. 2023 puts the cherry on the topping, so to speak. So I think if we can have, as a part of the 2023 budget, we can come up with some recommendations in terms of what might be appropriate to invest in the STAR program.
Are you doing the budgeting now?
So that's,
So
well, that's what we're doing.
the first step, the first step will be performed in April. Typically, the county auditor, the big unknown is what the property tax forecast will be. We typically receive those by the end of April from the county auditor. At which point, we will estimate the revenues, and our plan is to go to the police department, for instance, and say, this is what total revenue is gonna be in the general fund. 52% of that is for the police department, craft a budget, that's this amount. Submit it to us. I think by ORC, we have to have the tax budget submitted by the end of July.
It's due mid-July, typically at our July first council meeting, if not our last one in June. We hold a public hearing to approve the budget so we can pass a resolution to get down to county meeting July 17th.
It's, so I have it on my calendar.
But it seems to me, just for the sake of argument, that since the money is so fluid, like it does, I know I agree with the process, you want to think it through in the budget, but if we could put $500,000 in tomorrow, it doesn't really change your process at all. If the money comes back with no fees, if it's that fluid for us, that to me, we're losing.
I understand what you're saying now.
I'm just putting it up for discussion. Because I get the process, but to me, I mean, in my life, you never had that opportunity to put money in, start earning tomorrow.
And you
And
can
take
take
it
it
back
out
without-
at any time
at any
without any
time.
fees. I don't know if that was clear to everyone. That
The
was
question is, what's the minimum that we
So-
kind of keep?
And
in
that's
place?
something that councilors needs
Right.
to direct to us. The one thing about waiting to the tax budget is, at least conceptually put together, is we will know how much total carryover we will have. At this point, I can tell you, you can go back to the appropriations budget. That is the guiding document for our budget this year that was passed in December. That is an estimate of what the carryover is gonna be to end this year, but that's from December. Now, nothing has changed significantly that we've appropriated anything from the reserve, but
Mr.
So
Sturgeon,
you're alluding to where we were just gonna potentially put our carryover into the stuff.
not 100%, well, it's up to the council.
Okay,
Matt
that's,
had recommended
it wasn't-
50%.
it wasn't our,
What he suggested was, I don't think you
Not
recommended that.
recommended.
it wasn't our reserves itself.
It would be the reserve, a portion of that would go into Star Ohio.
Okay,
Is how Mr. Betcher conceptually explained how he envisioned it to me.
okay.
So I think the real conversation needs to be among the finance committee and council. How much you guys want to put in there. So if we are projecting a $927,000 carryover to end this year, which is what we started the year with, what's the number you guys are comfortable with?
Does it,
And what do you envision doing with that? Well, you know, and these are all questions, council controls the purse.
okay, the other piece for me is, okay, we decide whatever day we're gonna do this is how much we're gonna put in. What's the process to getting the account set up? Does it take 45 days? Because
And
that,
I don't know.
I think
That's
that's
just a
what
sense.
finance had said was, let's get that information. So I'm assuming it's going to be on the April 25th Finance Committee meeting agenda to get the answers to those questions, that we contacted these 5 jurisdictions. This is their best practice. Here's what it takes to open up an account. Here's how quickly we can open an account, to get the information back to the chair who initially requested this. So we're talking 4 weeks. And yeah, every day,
yeah,
is
so
it $1?
what that leads me to think is maybe we can decide today, let's put $10,000 in to get, and at least get the account open and get the process going. And then all this other stuff can happen.
I don't
And
think we know that
You know what I mean?
information, do we? We
I
have
do
to
not
do
know that
research,
information is.
which is the next step, is to take it back to finance with the research to make the process work. So this really falls within the finance committee to make that decision, for finance to make a recommendation to the full council.
To what I understand, your question to be at the essence of it is, what do you see as I think you may have already answered this, but what do you see as the pitfalls of just going ahead and putting some money in, or going forward, putting some money in, even if we don't know that that's gonna work, because we could just pull it right back out if.
It's honestly, it's shooting from the hip. It's doing something without having a thought out, well-planned approach to saving money. And
I think he's
started
heard that.
process.
Yeah, I think he's heard that. I think the question is, what is what are the potentially really bad things that could happen?
Stock market crashes,
And
the return is no longer 8%, it's actually a loss.
I-
But that's not happened. So looking at the numbers that Andy presented, it's tracking an astronomical return. Our economy, even with Ukraine, is relatively holding well. Most of you guys are probably watching your 401ks and they're doing pretty well overall. Now, there are shifts on the market that we know are coming, right? Because the Fed's going to adjust interest rates and things like that.
They've already,
Briefly.
those have been adjusted. My
Right.
understanding is the market's already accounted for future adjustments.
There you go. So it sounds like to me, from what we were discussing earlier, and this may answer the question you're asking, I'm not sure. But let's just pretend in a fantasy world, we take half of that reserve, a flat $1 million, the example I was using in that meeting. A flat $1 million should yield approximately $80,000 by the end of the year if we hold at the 8% return that has been showing consistently. Every day that money isn't sitting there is interest that we're not making. Quick and easy.
It's $175 if we do 800 and we have an even rate of return of 8%
A day.
a day.
And the risk is low because at any given moment, if there is a shift in the direction that you guys decide to take, you just pull the money. There's no penalties or fees associated with that. So it seems on its face, this is a no-brainer, put money in as fast as possible. Or is there something that we're missing?
Let me be clear.
Hold up.
I don't know.
Let Mr.
One of the questions that I would have is, what is the mechanism, both budgetarily and from this body, to move money over there? And I don't know that. Do we need council, an amendment to appropriate?
Well, there's a lot of moving parts
Right. It
here,
just
and
seems
I would just bring up the issue of, we have a process, and the process is we give information to finance then digests the information and gives a recommendation. And not everybody in the room was at the finance committee meeting. We have one member who's a member of the finance, who's not a member of council. And are we respecting the decision that she unanimously supported with the finance committee saying, get this information and come back to us? Are we saying, we don't care what you recommend, finance, we're gonna do what we think we wanna do at that
That's a
particular
good point.
moment?
Well, but I'm not really circumventing that, I don't think. All I'm saying is, well, I didn't hear any clear direction on it. And based on this discussion, I'm not suggesting we take $500,000 to do it. I guess I'm saying we can move to actually start the process to open the account. And if you want to mitigate risk, which I get by market shifts or whatever, it could be $1,000, to do it. Because just the action of doing that is being proactive for whatever we decide to do later, like pull it out.
And mitigating the cost of bureaucracy. Get the wheels in motion, because it seems like it's something that everybody seems to
I'm just
feel.
asking the question.
Everybody seems to feel it is a good idea. But I respect what you guys are saying. It's like, let's go through our process.
There's no doubt it's great.
Yeah.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
The one thing I would also say is, I've been here for almost 4 years now, and we haven't done it yet. What's another month
Exactly.
to make sure that we get the
Let the
process?
$5,260.
Let the process-
What's the cost?
I know, and I don't disagree. We don't want to just jump in and do it. But yeah, there's some substantial money there, so maybe greasing the wheels for the final process, which we think is gonna go there. If we grease the wheels, what have we spent? We've spent time from our fiscal officer, and that is an expense. That's taking your time to grease those wheels, to get that account set up, or at least researched. Is that worth the expense? It seems like everybody's okay with that expense without actually jumping and dumping a bunch of money in. Yes,
What's the expense?
I've been here
I heard $1 million, $500,000,
What?
$10,000, and $1,000.
No, I'm talking about the expense of it, the expense of your time setting it up, and the odds of it actually not happening.
It's going down.
So then greasing the wheels doesn't make it, let's go and grease the wheels, get the account ready to receive the funds that we all deem as appropriate for the thing. I think that's where he's going with it. I don't necessarily disagree, but I think Ron's right. I think Terry's right. Let's make sure before we put the car in gear, we haven't checked all the tires yet, but we feel that it's a brand new car, it's gonna run right.
To Mr. Fisher's point, which was also brought up during the Finance Committee meeting, looking for the best practices on this. I mean, that in itself is
Sure.
best practice.
Exactly.
All right. And so I appreciate the work that Mr. Lanzer's been charged with as far as what he needs to look into to move forward. I like the idea of getting this started as soon as possible if it means, more money that's in the service of our residents, right? But ultimately, I defer to administration and the Finance Committee on this. And not all the members of the Finance Committee are represented right now.
I agree with that.
Okay. Let's see. I have some announcements here. Next council meeting will be Monday, April 11th. Executive committee will be at 6 p.m. Full council at 7 p.m. Community engagement. We're still figuring out when that next meeting will be, but we'll make that public on the website as soon as we have that information.
Well, let's ask Mr. Donlin here real quick. So is that a committee? Do we have to have 3 members of council or the mayor?
The chair typically can call the meeting, and typically the chair would check with other members to see if they're available, then call the meeting and then notify you to post it up on the webpage. That's the key, is posting it ahead of time with an agenda as what's to be discussed.
How much ahead of time?
You got to do at least
So
24 hours.
Okay.
A typical response would be 48 to let the media know if they want to attend.
Okay.
So the chair can call it because it's a council committee, but chair would typically not call it unless got consensus from the other member, but it's calling and saying, what's your schedule?
Okay.
Mr. Fisher, would you take it as a great offense if they were to meet without you, if it's recorded and you're able to?
I'm 100% fine with that.
Okay, all right. Just for your consideration. All right, so any other announcements? Finance committee will be next meeting, April 25th at 6 p.m. And do we have any other announcements? Any objections to my asking for a motion to close? All right. Do we have a motion to close?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you everyone for your service. Have a great evening.
All right.